The story opens with a voice saying, "I am an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world." The voice belongs to an old man. As he coughs up some blood, he continues saying, "I come from a civilized," and before he can finish his words, a young girl enters his house carrying a bowl of food. She feels sad seeing his condition and tells him that her mother wanted her to bring him the food. The old man turns to her and thanks her with a weak voice. As the girl places the food on the floor, she replies, saying it's no problem. She tells him to get well and politely asks him to make them some of his soap again. She leaves the old man's house and walks into the cold winter snow. The man is called Seo, and he is an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. He explains that it has been 50 years since he fell into this cursed world. He, Director Kim, and other employees were on their way to a company workshop when they were suddenly swept up by a landslide and woke up in a strange world. A world inhabited by a giant three-tailed fox, a two-headed red snake, and mysterious men who can fly. They had fallen into the world of Xianxia novels he used to read from time to time. Despite that, he knew his co-workers were destined for better lives than everyone else, except for him. The sage-like beings who descended from above were in awe of his colleagues' mythical talents and took each one of them into the sky. Only Seo and Director Kim remained in this world. They had hoped that something special would happen to them too, but neither of them had any special abilities. Without knowing anything about this world, all they could do was manual labor. 6 months later, Director Kim told Seo that he couldn't live like this anymore, and used all his money to buy a third-rate martial arts book that was sold on the streets. Within 3 months, he mastered it and became a full-fledged martial artist. He worked for the nation and learned more advanced martial arts. After he rose through the ranks and became a powerful warrior, he left for a place called Jianghu, leaving Seo behind. Seo wondered if something special would happen to him as well, but nothing ever happened to him at all. 50 years later, he was an old man, dying from a common cold, coughing up blood and clinging to a sliver of his former life. Seo explains that he tried his hardest to live. He learned the language and how to write, made a living, bought a small plot of land, and built his own house. He even found modest success making and selling soap, a novelty in this medieval world. However, even that ended after thieves stole his soap recipe and their thugs booted him out of the market. Having been refused by the world, he now waits for his death. Frustrated, Seo cries out asking what the world wants him to do. As he grits his bloody teeth, he continues saying, even though he tried his hardest, what must he do? He breaks down and starts to weep, wondering why he couldn't have been chosen. Even though he is not special, why does he have to continue having things taken away from him? His strength declines, and his eyes grow heavy. As he drifts toward unconsciousness, a final thought lingers. If only he had a bit more power, perhaps things could have been different. Then, in a burst of radiant light, he opens his eyes again. He looks down at his hands, young and full of life. Confused, he wonders why he's still alive, and aren't these the clothes he wore back on Earth? He looks around and sees his colleagues waking up and wondering where they are. In that moment of stunned clarity, his eyes lit up with realization. He hadn't arrived in this world empty-handed. He had been granted a power, the ability to regress. As Director Kim looks around in confusion, Seo thinks this is the first day they fell into this strange world. Seo vaguely recalled how they got here, an SUV, a landslide, a sudden flash. As a voice called out from behind, he continues reflecting on how difficult it was to remember something that had happened 50 years ago. If this was regression, what should he do now? Most stories like this begin with someone exploiting future knowledge for gain, he mused, but all he knew was how to make soap. Suddenly, a firm hand gripped his shoulder, snapping him out of his thoughts. Section Chief Jeon stood behind him, voice sharp and laced with fury as he barked Seo's name. Seo blinked, surprised by the sudden interruption, and instinctively muttered an apology. Out of nowhere, Chief John slapped Seo across the face, his fury bursting forth without warning. The sound rang out, leaving everyone in stunned silence. John yelled, calling him Deputy Manager Seo and blaming him for dozing off while driving on a mountain road, nearly getting them all killed. Seo sat frozen. The title felt distant, like a name from another life. It had been so long since he'd heard it, he didn't even realize John was talking to him. John's face was twisted with fury as he asks Seo if he wants to lose his job the moment they get back. The threat jolted Seo's memory. He now recalled this man, Section Chief John Myong-hoon. A constant thorn in his side, John was the managing director's nephew, a man who had climbed to Section Chief at just 32 through sheer nepotism and luck. A chief steps in between them, attempting to calm John down, but John keeps venting his anger, his voice rising with frustration. As Seo stood up, he admits he definitely dozed off. But the reason he did so was because Jeon had dumped his own workload onto him the night before, forcing Seo to stay up late. Moreover, John was supposed to be in charge of driving. John continues to complain that they are stranded because of Seo. Seo starts to slowly recall his memories from 50 years ago. He remembered how, back then, he had been so shocked that he apologized to Jean. He thought he was in the wrong. Then he went on to spend the next 50 years, just like that, apologizing to people. Even when a group of bandits trampled over him and took his belongings, when a damned martial artist mocked him, or when a regional official took everything he had in the name of taxes. He kept apologizing. But there was one thing he realized after years of keeping it in. You only keep your temper in front of those you can't handle. Seo stood up straight and called out to Jeon, saying he knows he is mad, but now's not the time to be pointing fingers. Hearing this, Jeon gets angry and punches him on his face, asking if he is asking for a fight. That punch sealed it. There was no need to kneel before a man like this. Seo spun and drove his fist into Jeon's face, sending him stumbling backward. The others gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. Seo didn't stop. He pounced, raining down blows. In his past life, he has been beaten up by martial artists countless times. He was beaten up by bandits while getting herbs in the mountains, by more bandits on years of bad harvest, and even by officials because he couldn't pay his taxes. As he continues to beat Jeon, he realizes that in that world of violence, he was able to gain something that these people lack. Violence. If you hit someone in the eyes, their fear is amplified. After being beaten up like this, only 2 words instinctively leave your mouth. "I'm sorry," John choked out, just as Seo knew he would. Seo might not have mythical talents or world-shaking martial arts, but he does have the ability to change fate.